Well, great to have you on again. Now, I know you just made the presentation to the review committee for Bill 29 yesterday.
Yes, it was yesterday. We spent 3 hours there, I guess, with the committee yesterday. It was actually a very interesting discussion, one I enjoyed very much.
Yeah, I caught a few clips on the news and heard some of the material coming out of it. It sounds like you've had some frustrations, the Liberal Party has, with the legislation, and you've already said that should you become the Premier, the Liberal Party will be doing away with Bill 29, presumably going back to what was there and then looking towards something different for the future. Is that the case?
Yeah, it is, and that's the position that it really only took us minutes after we went through the House of Assembly and the filibuster, if you remember, back in 2012. And immediately after that, it was our decision that we felt what was in the best interest of the people of the province is that we would, with the support of people, and if they saw fit for us to form government, then we would repeal Bill 29. And we stand by that. But this commission that we spoke to yesterday, it's really much more than Bill 29. It's about the old piece of legislation, even though the Bill 29 that almost it's really become a brand on its own. These were the amendments to that original piece of legislation, but it's the amendments to Bill 29 that we said that we would repeal, and there was certainly lots of discussion around other things around access to information and protection of privacy yesterday in the 3-hour presentation that we gave.
Do you think that the present government really deserves that? This has stuck to them so hard ever since, to the extent that they had to start this review committee. Do you think that it really is representative, or the response that it's gotten is fair, to the present government? Have they taken more heat on this than they should have, perhaps?
No, I believe probably even not enough, because if you had to work in the system, one of the things that's coming clear throughout the deliberations at the committee meetings is that the problems that most people have with this, these recent amendments with Bill 29, as you mentioned, Pete, is they're very clear where the problem areas are. And we highlighted 4 sections yesterday in our presentation, but it went well beyond that. And the commissioner, the chair, and both commissioners actually asked questions around many other areas of this piece of legislation. We also talked about terms of office for the commissioner, let's say. We talked about the fees that are attached to that. And we actually brought examples with us as part of our presentation to say, we gave one example yesterday of fees that we had to pay or would have had to pay, even though we couldn't do it. It was over $1,600 to get the information that we were looking for, but there was a fee attached to it of over $1,600. So it's not something to the opposition office that we were in a position to actually pursue, and therefore walked away from getting that information. And then the level, the amount, the quality of the information that we get when we make access to information requests, what we're finding is that the quality is not there anymore. There's a lot of redacted information, and in some cases, even though the timelines, are not as bad as they were in the beginning, we're still waiting beyond the timelines in many cases to get the information. And as the chair said, a timeliness around access to information is a critical piece of all of this.
Yeah, I did see that particular response from Mr. Wells. Clearly, the use of frivolous and vexatious has been of particular note to people. I don't know how often those are actually used to deny requests for information, but is that something that you, first of all, see that, there are occasions where requests are a little on the frivolous side or perhaps antagonistic, or is that something that you just can't accept being in the document at all, in the legislation?
Well, if people are deliberately trying to clog up the system by making access to information requests, well, I think that would be a concern for any government. And so, therefore, adding that definition and that option of actually using the authority that the legislation provides, that's already there. So if people, as I said, deliberately trying to clog up the systems, slow the system down, that's a different issue than what we're talking about. But as fees, as an example that I just gave, if that is standing in the way, well, then that is prohibiting and restricting access to information, which I believe the public have a right to know.
Okay. If we could, just for a second, I'd like to ask you about something else as well. We'll have a new premier in September. A lot of talk has gone on about how long that new premier, whoever it is, should take to call a general election. There's some concern about it taking place in the fall of 2015, of course, because of the federal election schedule for then as well. When do you think is the optimum time or the proper time to have another general election for Newfoundland and Labrador?
Yeah, well, I guess if you go back to the legislation that we currently operate under, is that it would be 1 year after the new premier is put in place. So that would actually, this current government could go to next fall, under this piece of legislation. With that said, the last, elected premier that we would have had, if this government decided to take it to the full extent, would be well over a year, which I believe was the intent of the legislative changes that was made. I believe it was back in 2005, if memory serves me correct. It was about 2005, I think, when the piece of legislation that we currently operate under was brought in. Then it said that, 1 year after a new premier, there would be an election. If we go out to next fall, that's a year and a half. I mean, this is a decision that the incoming premier will have to make. But, of course, we're saying let's have an election as quickly as possible, and I think, it should be within the year. I mean, we've seen the last elected premier, Premier Donerdale. That was, certainly earlier this year, and that year would be up, I guess, sometime in maybe February of 2015. Mm-hmm. So I believe the election should be. That was the intent of the legislation, but regardless of what it is, as the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador, I can assure you, Pete, that we are preparing for an election, even if it came this fall. We'll be ready, and we're ready. We've got 17 nominations already done. We've got most of our district associations already in place now. We've made considerable. We changed our financial position within the party considerably within the last few months. Well, I've got a pretty heavy schedule. Tomorrow I'll be in Twilling Gates. I guess on the weekend I'll be in Codroy Valley. Friday night I'll be back into the district because you just mentioned some of the festivals that's on the go. I'll be in Pasadena, my own district, on Friday night. And so it's busy. Next week it's back in St. John's again for a few days, and then we'll be doing the same thing again. So we're getting our MHAs out there across the province. The old intention is one that we started 3 years ago, to speak to as many people as we can, because we believe that people in this province really matter, and they deserve the right to be heard.
What about party fundraising? Is that going to schedule? Are you satisfied that you're going to have the resources you need to run an effective campaign whenever it happens?
Oh, very much so. We had, as you know, in May, the largest fundraiser in the history of the province, and just last week we did a fundraiser in St. John's, which is our typical, summer golf tournament. We had a sellout there. We had over 40 teams that was registered there. It was a great fundraiser for us again. People had a lot of fun, and it was a networking, socializing opportunity again to connect with some people. And, we're doing this around with our own district associations. They're doing their own fundraisers, their MHAs, and I've been attending a lot of those as well. And this is what you had to do, build up the, provincial financial resources, plus do so at the association level as well. And as I said, we've got 70 nominations already completed.
All right, sir. Listen, I really appreciate your time today. We'll have an opportunity to speak again, no doubt. There's so many things we need to cover, and there never seems to be enough time. But we'll get there if we keep trying out.
Just one quick note before I go.
Sure.
Just one comment on the meeting that we had, the All-Party Committee yesterday with Minister Shea. And I tell you, it was disappointing for me to go in and realize that the position on LIFO, that she actually took a firm stance on that and did not seem willing at all to negotiate a new sharing arrangement. And we know that the inshore shrimp fishery has made significant investment in this industry since, since the late 1990s, I guess. And in 2007, when it became, identified or defined to be permanent, no longer temporary, there was an expectation there that they were players, in this industry, and that if with proper management, that when you got to make difficult decisions to actually reduce quotas, well, then it will be shared in an equitable fashion. And what we're seeing with this current policy is not that at all. This current policy of LIFO has a negative impact, extreme impact on the inshore shrimp fishery. And right now, I tell you, we need that policy change, and the minister, of course, has the authority to do that.
All right. Well, actually, that's a subject that bears perhaps a lot more commentary, and where you are representing the Liberals on the All-Party Committee, perhaps we can continue this in the near future. As a matter of fact, I'll be in for Paddy tomorrow morning, so should you have any time then, that might be an opportunity, or whenever it is convenient for you, sir.
I really appreciate it, Pete, as always, and enjoy your evening.